All right, so I'm gonna start with one of those raise your hands if you know this, okay? Have you ever had like one of the best days of your life, and then you come home, you're walking around, you take your shoes off, you relax, and then you walk through the living room, and then bam, your pinky toe does a little thing on the coffee table. Has that ever happened to you? Do you know somebody that's happened to? Can everybody raise their hands so I know we're all in this together? Perfect. This message is for you because you have experienced suffering. So, I imagine the Buddha stubbed his toe a couple of times in his life, and that led him to conclude that life is suffering. And we're in this series titled Elephants in the Room, where we address the things that the church has maybe not addressed generally, or maybe they have addressed it and they've addressed it poorly, and it's led to hurt rather than healing, and it's caused confusion rather than clarity. So I am here to talk about the controversial issue of suffering, and the question at the premise of this is, can a good God exist alongside evil? You know, it's the number one reason that atheists and agnostics reject the loving theistic God of Christianity. It's because they can't get over the fact that there's suffering in the world. And so when they're asked this question, can good God and evil exist together, they answer no. But I say we should answer yes. And I don't know where you stand on these issues, but I want you to hear me out and wonder if you can say yes as well. So before we get started, I have to build this framework of questions that'll help me guide you through this topic of suffering and evil and its relationship to a good God. Those questions are, can a good God and evil exist? Like I've said. Why does God allow suffering and evil? Does God allow evil and suffering? Is there a way we can go around this idea of theodicy, that God does allow suffering? What is God's response to evil and suffering? And what should our response be to evil and suffering? So there's a lot of theologically stimulating conversation on this topic. But the problem is there's not a lot of pastoral information on this idea of suffering. There's not a lot of information that is for the lay people to deal with this idea of suffering. You know, one person says the response of theodicy doesn't help the sufferer. And so I don't want to get caught up into this intellectual, weighty stuff, but I do want to provide an overview of where theologians are on this issue. So there's probably two main theodicies that theologians hold to. The first one is the free will theodicy, and it argues that theodicy, or suffering, has to exist in order for us to have free will. God thought it so important that we have free will that he allowed suffering to exist. And then the other one is open theism, which says that God limits his knowledge of what's going to happen. And in this way, he has this relational aspect to us, and he can relate to us in that. So, depending on who your Theo 1 professor was, you either really like one or really dislike the other. I think that's generally, we can all agree on that. And then there's this other one, which I think Dante in his Inferno captures really well in this beautiful poem. And this isn't really a theodicy of its own. It's more of a conversation that transcends other theodicies. So I'm going to read just a couple of stanzas. Halfway along this journey of our life, I woke in wonder in a sunless wood, for I had wandered from the narrow way. Oh, how can I give voice to what it was, that wild, that savage, and that stubborn wood, The very thought of it renews my fears, for death itself can hardly be more harsh than is the memory of that monstrous place. But let me sing of other things I saw, for evil in the end gave rise to good. That last line, evil gave rise to good, that's the position I've held for most of my life. And the peers I talk to and the professors I talk to, they hold to this idea that evil exists because of the good that God uses it for. But I think we have to reject this idea. Because if evil's purpose is only to bring about good, that negates the existence of evil, because it makes it a good. But evil does exist, and suffering does exist, and I believe we do our lay people an injustice when we don't admit that it's real. So, 2 reasons I reject it is because 1, it negates the existence of evil, and 2, Austin Farr sums it up in this quote: evil can never be justified. It is theologically defined as what God himself detests. And so it's for this reason that I cannot believe that God chooses to use evil. And that might be causing some confusion right now, and I'll clarify that later. But based on this quote, I've come to 3 conclusions. 1, God does not allow evil. 2, God does not use evil, though he's quick to redeem it when evil has come through and wrecked. And 3, God is actively opposing evil and is calling us to do the same. So will you pray with me? Father, I feel so woefully inadequate to talk on such a topic of depth and controversy. And if I'm honest, God, I don't have a good answer. So I'm leaning on you to guide this conversation, to lead me to speak with clarity and to speak in a way that those listening would understand, that they would feel your love. Father, Son, Spirit, if there's one thing I know, it's that you are good. So God, as I continue on, I pray that we remember to trust in your goodness and your love for us. Amen. So now I want to look at some scripture. You're probably wondering, why is this guy not using scripture? The first one I want to look at is Genesis 1 through 2. In the beginning, and this means our time, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty. That's the tohu vabohu for you in Hebrew. I don't take Hebrew, so I'm assuming that's right. That's the tohu vabohu, which means order out of chaos. Is that right? Do y'all know? Any Hebrew students? Tohu vabohu? No? It means order out of chaos, which means it addresses the question, where did evil come from? And the only answer I can provide is it was there from the beginning of our time. And this causes issues because, wait a minute, God and evil have always been? No, I don't want to say that. I just want to say it was before God created. So then I look at John 1:1, which mirrors Genesis 1, where it says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And so I think this is a different in the beginning. I think this is the beginning, outside of our time, whereas Genesis 1 is inside our time. That's the beginning. So that means that God is still sovereign over evil. And so how long has God had a plan to oppose evil? Well, Revelation 13:8 says the Lamb was slain from the creation of the world. So from the beginning, it was God's plan to oppose evil. And so we're left with this one question. How does God respond to evil? The first way he responds is through Jesus. And in John 19:30, it says, this is of Jesus on the cross, breathing his last. It says, "It is finished." That's the moment that Jesus defeated evil. But that causes confusion too, because, well, there's still evil and suffering, right? How did God defeat evil on the cross and there still be evil and suffering? That's the big question. And I believe that the answer is my second point to how God responds to evil. He responds to evil with you. You, as the Imago Dei, are supposed to mirror God in opposing evil. And that's how I understand the Lord's Prayer when it says, "Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name, your kingdom come, on earth as it is in heaven." That is an orientation for how we act in the world. We act in a way that brings heaven to earth, which means we go against suffering and evil. We ameliorate suffering. We alleviate the pain that others are feeling. And this is what Christians have done for 2,000 years. When I think of the start of Christianity, we hear stories of Christians running to the river where pagans would leave their child that they didn't want, and they would go and rescue them. That's Christians living the Lord's Prayer. That's Christians bringing heaven to earth. I also think of in 252, when the plague hit Rome, they called it the Cyprian plague. And everybody got out of town. They left the sufferers on the streets, but the Christians stayed, because Christians chase suffering. So my main idea is this: God actively opposes evil, and he calls you to do so too. So if you're an unbeliever in this room, if you've given up on the idea of God because you just can't handle that suffering is a thing, you don't think that suffering and a good God can exist together, I just ask you to trust God. Trust that he's good. Trust that he has a plan. Trust that his goodness is so far beyond what you could possibly assume what it is. And I think of Revelation 22, 4-5, when God reveals his divine plan, where it says, "He will wipe every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death, or mourning, or crying, or pain, for the old order of things has passed away." He who was seated on the throne said, "I am making everything new." That's the goodness of God, that he will eradicate evil in the end and make things new. So,